Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunivari Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so let's just pick up the context of where we are, because today we're kind of going a little bit off the page, Maharaj, we're on chapter 28. He alludes to the Apasampradayas. But he doesn't.
29. Is it Murli Prabhu 28? Is it? I thought it's 29.
Yeah.
Have I got the wrong one?
28 now.
Okay, thank you.
We're on chapter 28. So Maharaj just alludes to these.
Can I disturb you for 1 second?
Yes, please.
No, you're recording and Sachar is recording. But
okay, I have to record. Yeah, I have. Yeah,
so
I'm not recording yet.
You're not recording?
I'm not recording. Not on my. I'm just seeing on my computer if I can record. It's not coming up for me to record.
Okay, so Sachar is recording. That's fine.
Yeah, so she's recording. Yeah.
Maybe there is no data, Murli Prabhu.
Sorry?
Maybe there is not enough space on the drive.
Yeah. Anyway, you're recording, so it's being recorded, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, where was it? So we're on chapter 28. So Maharaj just alludes to these Apasampradayas. And then I looked in a book, I found the book that I had of Suhotra Swami, where he gives more elaboration on these Apasampradayas. So that's where we're going today. Whether we'll cover them all in an hour, I think it's a bit doubtful, but let's see how we go. Again, more in the context of, because the chapter is about how pure devotion or tasting pure devotion is not a whimsical thing. And then Maharaj brings up, remember we spoke about the Pseudo Devotees controversy. Remember what that is? Where one gets assigned your spiritual body, so-called, even though one may not be qualified. And we spoke details about that. Then we spoke about the Babaji versus the Sadhazat spontaneous devotion disagreement. If you remember that discussion, the Babajis and what they say.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Yeah, and then what we say. It's an interesting history, I find, to study. I mean, if I had the time, which I won't have, but I would, I mean, if I was to do a like PhD type of thing, I'll probably do it on the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, because it's quite fascinating, actually. And I don't know if fascinating is the right word, but it's interesting. And then we spoke about the Saki Beki and the other Sahajiyas. So that's where we are now. All right. So this is based on the study by Suhotra Swami. So we're going to elaborate more on some of these Apasampradayas. So just as an introduction, Sampradaya, the actual word for your interest in Sanskrit, Sampradaya, not Apasampradaya. It's genuine instruction that's received through the Guru Parampara, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4. Evam parampara praptam imam varisevadu saglena mahatma yoga nasta parantapaha. So it's just received through the dislibeate succession. Yeah. So also the word Sampradaya doesn't have an exact equivalent English translation. So it could, as the word that came up, was it yesterday? We used this word orthodoxy. Yeah. Orthodox Hare Krishna. Orthodox Jews, Orthodox Hare Krishnas. So So it brings out what actually admission into Sampradaya. It's not just coming to grasp with Krishna's teachings, but one's lifestyle should be a demonstration, or one's achar should be a demonstration of those teachings. Yeah. So that's what it means to be part of a sampradaya. Here's a quote from Srila Prabhupada. To obey your spiritual master, whatever he has said, you follow strictly. Follow the regular principles, chant 16 rounds, a basic definition. Yeah. So we're following these teachings. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's the one who identified 13 upper sampradayas, so that those who deviate from the doctrine say that Krishna has given. Yeah. And he identified 13. I think we're going to cover 10 of them. Might do today. Let's see how far we get. You may have heard of these names. Aula, Maul, Kartabhaja, Neda, Dharavesha, Shani, Sahajiya, Saki Beki, them two described. Smarta, I think we touched on last week. Jata Gosai. And also Ativhadi, Chadu Hari, and Goranga Nagari. So upper means deviated. So they were deviated from the original doctrine. Yeah. Now it's interesting spending time reading this and trying to study a little bit. I begin to appreciate, for that we have acharyas who have given us in its pristine explanation what is devotion to Krishna. Especially when I was reading this, I was feeling very thankful for our parampara. Especially I was thinking of the verse Anya Bilasta Sunyam, Gana Kamadi Anavrikam, Ano Kukulina Krishnano, Silana Bhakti Uttama. Rupa Goswami goes to great lengths to describe what is actual devotion. And reading these deviations is quite sobering, because it's quite amazing of how far off one can actually go. And as some of these details were given of these Apasampradayas, they're not so pleasant to hear. All right, so get ready for that. I've managed to kind of edit a little bit of it out, some of it out, but we need to get an idea of how, I should say, we need to get an idea of how much we should understand our Siddhanta and our philosophy, that we do not get influenced by some form of Apasampradaya. All right, so that's just as a ways of introduction. All right, if you've got any questions, please raise your hand or unmute and ask. It's fine. So we've dealt with some degree with Jata Gosai, the Caste Gosvamis, and actually, but quite a large amount in this book by Suhotra Swami is dedicated to Jata Gosai, these Caste Gosvamis. So I won't be able to cover every point which he makes. But here's a quote to begin with, where Prabhupada speaks directly about these Jata Gosai, or Jata or Gosani. So quote from Prabhupada, this is from 1969, which is very early on. And sorry, I keep just remembering another thought I had while I've been reading this. I can understand now more how Prabhupada was so careful in protecting his ISKCON society from being influenced by these Apasampradayas, knowingly or unknowingly. That's why Prabhupada was very, very strict in this regard. Yeah. because he's firsthand living in a culture where so many Apasampradayas are prevalent. Anyway, to the quote from Prabhupada. So there are 13 pseudo pretenders belonging to the Chaitanya Sampradaya. So, kind of belonging. So if I describe these 13, it would take 13 hours. So I don't describe them at all. But one or two must be described. The most important is the Jata Gosai. They created a caste of Goswamis, just like they created a caste of Brahmanas. So this Goswami will become by hereditary birth, just like the Brahmanas. Yeah. And then Prabhupada goes on, I didn't put the whole quote here, but Prabhupada goes on to say, so my Guru Maharaj's contribution is that he defeated these caste Goswamis the same way as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. That, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Kipa Vripat Sudra Noi Kebi Nade Krishna Tattva Ve Se Guru Hoy. So there's no consideration whether someone is a sannyasi, a Brahman, or Sudra, or Grihastha. Household. No, anyone who knows the science of Krishna, he is all right. He is a Goswami. He is a Brahmana. And so you get the basic differences being pointed out here is that the Goswami is saying only if you're born in a particular family do you have the right to become a guru. Yeah. Anyway, let's go on. Prabhupada continues. This is a contribution, say, within 100 years. That is the contribution. And for this reason, he had to face so many vehement protests from this Brahman class Goswamis. And they actually, Prabhupada mentions that they wanted to kill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. Some of you might know of that story. And they paid a policeman to kind of not take any action for them killing Saraswati Goswami. And interesting, the policeman came to Saraswati Goswami, Bhaktisiddhanta, and said, actually, we do take bribes, but not a sadhu like you. And he gave him a warning. You be aware, this is being planned. Yeah. Because basically Bhaktisiddhanta was initiating persons from all castes. And that's our line, that's our sampradaya, coming either from North and Dastakor. That's the Pancharatrika Vidhi line, that anyone who's initiated by a bona fide spiritual master can become elevated and purified and take part in Brahminical activities. So these Jata Goswami were directly opposed to that. Yeah. Actually, they collected, the amount is given here of how much they wanted to bribe the policeman with, 25,000 rupees. So they collected 25,000 rupees. It's a lot of money in those days. So basically the Jata Goswami, they are a hereditary caste of so-called spiritual masters. Now, their qualification to give initiation is that they're born in a particular family. Now, these particular families, they boast family connections to the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or to disciples of these associates. Now, a very famous one, which is very prevalent in some places in India, and very prevalent, I think, in Navadvip, another place, is very prevalent in Ekachakra. They have a big temple there. It's the Nityananda Vamsa. Yeah, they're known as Nityananda Vamsa. So they claim seminal descent from Lord Nityananda. Yeah, through persons who are actually disciples, not sons, of Lord Nityananda's only son, which is Virabhadra Goswami. So they're claiming seminal, you understand? Seminal link, yeah? So so Jata Goswami, in other words, they used the title Goswami as a family name. Yeah. So that's as Prabhupada mentioned in the quote that we gave first. Yeah. So now they think themselves, because they have this title Goswami, they see themselves as being just as renounced and important. We have the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, which we're familiar with. Then we got the Goswamis families. So they've adopted the title Goswami, and in their sense, they are just as important, if not more important, than the 6 Goswamis. That's their idea. Yeah. And Prabhupada says here, one who is still in family life should not misuse the title Goswami. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not recognize the caste Goswami. Caste means family, yeah? Because they were not in the line of the 6 Goswamis in a renounced order, who were direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada goes on. One who is still in family life should not misuse the title Goswami. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur did not recognize the caste Goswamis. Again, same quote, I'm just saying again. Yeah. So we know the 6 Goswamis are Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Bhatta Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. And even now you go to India, isn't it? And we're kind of respectful to them. We don't bring these things up. But you go to the Radha temple, and all the Mahants there are known as Goswami families. Yeah. They're not exactly, there's different variations of them. The Radhaman Pandits are, they're not exactly in the classic Jata Goswami, Jata Goswami, is that they accept initiation. Oh, I don't know actually the details of it, but they give respect to the ISKCON devotees. Yeah. Yeah. But others don't. Yeah. So anyway, mentions here, Prabhupada says, or Suhotra Swami mentions, the ISKCON movement has never conferred the title of Goswami upon a householder. Yeah. Now they also, what they conclude is that anyone who's born in one of these families, they are automatically Uttam Adhikaris. They are the level. If you get born in that family, you are Uttama, because you're Nityananda Vamsa. You're born in a family coming ultimately, which is connection to Lord Nityananda. So therefore you're Uttam. Yeah, they consider Uttam Adhikaris. Yeah.
Question, Prabhu?
Yeah, yeah.
I was just wondering, because in ISKCON, like we have like Bir Krishna Goswami and other sannyasis with the title Goswami, like Dirish Shanta
Is he
Goswami.
Goswami? Dirishanta Goswami? Okay, yeah. Tamo Krishna Goswami,
Yeah.
Vishnu
So is
Goswami.
that a title, or is it just part of the name, or is it a special thing, or what?
It's not particularly, it doesn't demark a particular level of sannyas or level of advancement. It's just happens to, there is some science to it. I forget what it is exactly, but someone maybe get the name, say, Tamal Krishna Goswami. So that will be particular than the name or the sannyas name that Prabhupada gave, and other sannyasis might get the name Puri. Yeah, there is a science behind it, but without studying it, without looking at it, I cannot tell exactly. But if I'm understanding the question, it doesn't demark someone, a sannyasi who gets the name Goswami, as being better than a sannyasi who doesn't have the name Goswami.
Yeah, because I thought it means, oh, you've got your senses under control.
Yeah, it does, and that should be for every
Special
sannyasi.
name. It's like for some reason you get this special name.
As far as I know, as far as I understand, every sannyasi, they are awarded sannyasi because they're controlling their senses. They are all Goswamis. Yeah, and we're supposed to be Goswamis as well. We're supposed to control our senses as well, but we don't have that title.
But
So
I understood that if a married disciple, a married devotee, leaves a family behind and becomes a sannyasi, he is a Goswami.
okay, thank
But
you, Raj Kishore. That's the understanding behind it, and I think that's correct.
Yes,
Tamal Krishna Goswami was married.
yes.
Who else is there?
Mahavishnu Goswami.
Mahavishnu Goswami. Yeah, thank you, Raj Kishore, Mother, for pointing that detail out. That's why some of the sannyasis are given the title Goswami, because they've given up the hardest thing to give up. Yeah, they've given up their family connections. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Did that kind of shed some light in it, Mother Lavanga?
Hare Krishna Prabhu,
Yes, Nimai Mother.
I was thinking, but not all the disciples of Srila Prabhupada has got the Goswami, although they were some are married. Oh yes, even
Oh, really?
Gopala Krishna Maharaj is Goswami. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps I think you'll find if you do look at all of our sannyasis, those who are married, I think they get the title Goswami.
Indrajumna Maharaj? No.
Oh, interesting point. Yeah, Indradurma Swami. He
Yeah.
does have the title Goswami, and he was married. So
Yes.
anyway, so it may be a general rule and may not be applied in every time,
Okay.
but that's a general understanding, the one that Dr. Kishore said.
Hmm.
So let's just get back on course. So to get born in their line, you're considered Uttam Adhikari. Yeah. Now, there's some histories here which I probably won't give, it take too long. But they think that the austerities of the Goswamis, of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, it's unnecessary. Yeah. Because their philosophy is that Krishna is very affectionate to his devotees, Bhakta Vatsalya, and he becomes pleased when he sees them living a life of material comfort and sense gratification. Some of them will espouse this is their understanding. Krishna doesn't want. Krishna is Bhakta Vatsalya. So yeah, that's their understanding. So the kind of they yeah, so in that sense they're saying that to become Krishna is, yeah, so it's okay to live in, well, we live in relatively, we don't live in lavish, we try to live very simple lives, but they say it doesn't, Krishna doesn't want his devotees to worry too much. They should engage in sense gratification, and material comfort's fine. Yeah, so in other words, they think they're above the 6 Goswamis, because they're Goswamis, but they're so advanced, they are Uttams, they're born in the family of Nityananda, Vamsa, so therefore they're Uttams, therefore they can live in material comfort and sense gratification. So they're situated higher than the 6 Goswamis. Get the idea. Now, I don't know how much detail to get into here. So there's one of these Jata Gosai. He composed a work, I don't know if you call it scripture, Shlokamani Mala, which kind of asserts that their founder was a spiritual master of Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami. And they fabricate all types of stories, yeah, about Jiva Goswami and etc. in this book. Anyway, it goes on like that. Now, in 1932, these, I think we heard this before, it's in the Nectar Devotion. Prabhupada gives an account of it. In 1932, these Caste Gosvamis, these Jata Gosai, they opposed the Rajmando Parakram, which was organized by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because as far as they were concerned, they had deviated from the Vedic system by offering a sacred thread to persons of not Brahminical parentage. So they caused, I think we will read, yeah. And here's what Prabhupada says to Achyutananda Swami, who obviously came in touch with this mentality. Is this interesting? Find it okay? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thumbs up. Regarding the validity of the brahminical status as we accept it, because in the present age there is no observance of Garbhadan ceremony, even a person born in a Brahmin family is not considered a Brahmana. He is called Dvija Bandhu or unqualified son of a Brahmana. Under the circumstances, the conclusion is that the whole population is now Shudra, as it is stated, Kalo Shudra Shandava. For the Sudras, there is no initiation according to the Vedic system, but according to the Pancharatrika system, initiation is offered to a person who is inclined to take to Krishna consciousness. So, I'm just fast tracking a bit here. So perhaps this will probably take an hour just to get through this. So we're just going to miss a few notes here. Now in 1912, a bit of history here. Is it Bhakti? Oh yeah, Bhakti Siddhanta. He was invited to attend an assembly. But some Jata Goswami had quite a bit of influence, and their supporters, their Sahajiya supporters, somehow they prevented him from giving a public lecture. So in protest, Bhaktisiddhanta fasted for 4 days straight. Yeah. But then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he then met with them outside of a public forum. Yeah. And he actually defeated them in debate, in sastric debate. So after that, they was very much fearful of Bhaktisiddhanta. Yeah. Now Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, what he did, in order to, he went to war against these Jata Gosai, and the places where their so-called acharyas were and where they preached from, he actually went to those towns and villages and toured and deliberately went to their home turf, you know, and engaged in debate. And in one particular place, their leader met defeat in public debate at a village called Tufpada. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Now, then this comes back to the point I was making earlier. Yeah. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, then he then organized Navadvip Parakam leading up to Gaudapanini. Yeah. This was attacked, viciously attacked by Gundus who were hired by the Jata Gosai. Yeah. So they came actually, it was quite intense. So they came with bats and weapons, and they charged the elephant procession, and many people were injured. Now, at that point, the public was so shocked at their behavior that they all started to side with the Gaudiya Math and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Yeah, so they lost all their influence after that time. Yeah. Okay, that's the Jata Gosai. Any questions about that? I think we're familiar with some of this history. Then we go to the so the Caste Brahmannas, we mentioned these as well before in our classes, so won't spend too long. Here's a quote from Nectar of Devotion. The Padma Purana recommends somehow or other always think of Vishnu without forgetting him under any circumstances. Actually, this is the most basic of all the regulative principles. For when there is an order from a superior about doing something, there is simultaneously a prohibition. When the order is that one should always remember Krishna, the prohibition is that one should never forget him. With this simple order and prohibition, all regulative principles are found to be complete. So that's from chapter 2 of the Nectar of Devotion. Now, but not everyone has a complete understanding of this purpose. Now, Suhotra Maharaj, he brings up that there's 3 classes of Brahmanas. Perhaps I should have put this up on the slide, but try and remember. We have the Dvija. So this is someone who's accepted Brahmin thread. Second class is a Vipra. There's someone who's studied the Vedas. And the first class is a Vaishnava. So one who knows the goal of the Vedas, which is, in essence, to always remember Krishna and never forget him. Now, the non-devotee Vipra is what is meant as a Smarta Brahmana. So a Smarta Brahmana is interested in material profit from worship. Yeah. Whereas the Vaishnava is interested only in remembering Krishna or in satisfying Krishna. And this we mentioned last week. So they take it the other way around. So rather than always remember Krishna, that's the essence of all the regulations, they remember so many rules and regulations, but they forget Krishna. And Prabhupada says here, this is from the purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Majja-lila. There is a difference between the Smarta process and the Goswami process. According to the Smarta process, one cannot be accepted as a Brahmin unless he is born in a Brahmin family. According to the Goswami process, the Hari Bhakti Vilas and the Navada Pancharatra, anyone can be a Brahmin if he is properly initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. So similarly to the Jata Gosani, they claim rights, the only rights for being being initiated into Brahmin thread. Now, here's going through here. Now, in the 15th and 16th century, the Smarta community was practically, could say, nullified by Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. Yeah. Now, among the acharyas, we know we have Narottam Das Thakur. Yeah. Now, the Smartas considered him a low-born kayasta. Someone can, anyone, Rajkishore, what's a kayasta? Is it someone who deals in gold?
Business.
Business, are they?
Some kind of business.
Okay. So that's the family that Narottam Das came from. And as you know, Narottam Das Thakur was initiating hundreds of persons from the Jata Goswami families. So he comes from a kayasta, so as far as they're concerned, he has no right to do such a thing. So they became infuriated with him. And now they had amongst their clan, so to speak, they had one Raja Nrsimha. So he was a great pandit. So they the idea was they would lead a crusade and expose Norton as being a fraud. Good luck. Norton Dust calls a fraud. So there's interesting stories. So what they did, they had, the king came as well. The king of the province came along with this Rajana Shringha, big party going to Ketari, where Srinatham Das had his headquarters. Now, two of Norton's Brahmin-born disciples, they were Vaishnava Brahmin, they were Brahmins, born Brahmins. Two disciples, one was Ramachandra Kaviraj and the other was Ganga Narayan Chakravarti. Now, word had got through that this conquering Pandit and the king and a large retinue of men were coming to Ketari to so-called defeat and expose Srila Norton Das Thakur. So they did a very interesting thing, is they dressed themselves as just like ordinary Shudra types who was, and they set up a stall selling pan and betel nuts, and clay pots. Now, when the party arrived at one particular place, before they got to Ketari exactly, they set up camp, and some of the Smartas sent their disciples to go and purchase some stuff for cooking, etc. Yeah. Now, when they came to the stalls where Ramachandra and Ganga Narayan were, they were dumbfounded because these two Sudras, so-called, were speaking perfect Sanskrit and were eager not to do business, but to engage in philosophical disputation. Now, they was outmatched, so then these disciples called for their gurus, who arrived on the scene along with the conquering Pandit and the king. Now, when their gurus were also defeated by these two quote-unquote Sudras, by two of Norton Das's disciples, they also retreated. And let me just read here. So they actually, in the end, they all lost interest and describe of going to Ketari, because they thought, if this is just the disciples, what's going to happen when we actually meet Norton? Now, then at night, what happened? This conquering Pandit, Durga Devi appeared to him with a chopper that was used for killing goats, and she glared at him with blazing eyes, and she said, this quote here, Narasingha, because you greatly offended Norton Das Thakur, I shall have to cut you to pieces. If you want to save yourself, then you had better immediately go and take shelter of his lotus feet. So that's what he did. So there's a history there. So they're quite bitterly opposed to the spiritual masters in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, because still it's there, these Smartas. They also, as far as they're concerned, only Smartas, only if you're born in a Brahmin family, can you have the right to worship Shalagram Shila. And they will never marry outside the Brahmin caste. Now, they would rather give their daughter to the son of a tantric rather than a non-Brahmin Vaishnava. They would rather, for them to give their daughter in marriage to a non-Brahmana Vaishnava, better she marries a tantric. So, okay, that was the Smartas. I left out a few details. Okay. Prakrta Sahajiya. Now, quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur suggests that people who are materialistically inclined and Sahajiyas, or so-called Vaishnavas, who take everything cheaply, are both Vishayi. materialists, eating food offered by them causes contamination. And as a result of such contamination, even a serious devotee becomes like a materialistic man. Yeah. And then Prabhupada goes on. There are 6 kinds of association: giving charity, accepting food, offering food, and talking confidentially and inquiring confidentially. One should be very carefully avoid associating with both these Sahajiyas, who are sometimes known as Vaishnavas, and the non-Vaishnavas or Avaishnavas. Their association changes the transcendental devotional service of Lord Krishna into sense gratification. And when sense gratification enters the mind of a devotee, he is contaminated. The materialistic person who aspires after sense gratification cannot think properly of Krishna. Now, these we've heard this before. This is we understand. This is our Siddhanta. But when you hear about these Prakrta Sahajiyas, you can understand what this actually means, because they really, this is the heart of the Prakrta Sahajiya. So for them, there is no reformatory process. There is no process of yama and niyama following strictly rules and regulations. It just doesn't exist for them. So now there's a history that, of course, a lot has been written, you can find, and Suhotra Maharaj, one book he obtained about the history of the Sahajiyas. Actually, they can be traced back to before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, actually. Yeah. This is during the reign of the Buddhist Pala royal dynasty. So this is a secret cult during that time named Sahajana. So they arose within the school of Buddhism. Now, this is where it gets a bit, kind of not so pleasant. So this Sahajayana, they abandoned the rituals of Buddhism and the study of the Buddhist scriptures. And they took up a practice of tantric yoga, in the sense of sex as yoga. Let's just, yeah. So later on, the kings of Bengal, under the Sena kings, Vaishnavism became prominent in Bengal. And Vaishnavism spread then in Bengal, especially by the influence of Jata Goswami. Now these Sahajaniya deviation, could say, from Buddhism, then they renamed this process of tantric yoga, let's say, they correlate it with the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. All right. So they, in other words, Radha and Krishna represent the highest state of bliss between the male and female. And that's the Sahajiya path. Okay. I'll just that's it. It gets amazing how you can do it. So now, then they were influenced, then there was the Muslim invasion, and they was influenced by the Sufis. Yeah. So the Sufis, they're a mystical Islamic order. And there's different types of Sufis. You can go online, you can see they do this dervish dancing, where they dance and they dance around in circles. So they consider the state which they get into as fana, or like oneness with Allah. So these Sufis, they sought to attain through song and dance this feeling of sahajism, or this feeling of oneness with Allah. Okay. Now, just going through here. So let's just. Now, in the 16th century, then the Sankirtan movement flooded the world with sublime, perfect, and transcendental religion of pure love of God. Now, don't forget the Sahajas, as we just described, they came before Lord, they was around before Lord Chaitanya. So then, after Lord Chaitanya, then they mixed in their mundane sex mysticism with the Sankirtan movement. Yeah. So, yeah, just reading here. In the 18th century, the great movement began by Lord Chaitanya appeared to become corrupted by the influence of the Jata Gosani and Smartas. This sad state of affairs presented an opportunity for the Sahajiyas to expand their influence upon the people. So the Jata Gosai and the Smartas became eclipsed by the teachings, by the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. So then the Sahajiyas used that to expand their influence among common people. Yeah. So then we have Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the 19th century. He went to great lengths to distinguish the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya from the Prakrta Sahajiya perversions. Yeah. That's the atmosphere that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was preaching, pure, and even Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, because he was in that society, and in the beginning he had he didn't have a good view of the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because of these Sahajiyas. But then when he read and studied Chaitanya Charitamrita, he understood what the real teachings of Mahaprabhu were. There was nothing what these Sahajas were representing. Again, these Sahajas don't follow any principles. For them, it's not important. It's just erotic mood of so-called union. That's what the word Sahaja means. So that was the followers of Lord Chaitanya, as far as everyone's concerned. But it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur who actually established the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then on that basis, his son Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he actually made a vow that he would never go anywhere near a Sahaja. Yeah. Now, and a quote from Prabhupada, speaking about Bhaktisiddhanta: no compromise. Ram, Krishna avatars, yogis, everyone was the enemy of my Guru Maharaj. He had never compromised. Yeah. Now, so they were not accepted, of course, because they was around the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept them as his followers. Now, this is alluded to in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchilila, chapter 12. So, Lord Chaitanya was offered oil by Jagannatha Pandit. I think some of you might know that story. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that he refused the gift of scented oil, explaining that those who might smell it on his head would think him a Dhari sannyasi or a Sahajiya tantric sannyasi who keeps women for sense gratification. Yeah. There's more here. Any questions or comments? Yeah, so this is some of their claims of the Prakrta Sahajiya. Here's one, I'll just read these. When the Lord descends, he displays affection for his family members, Nanda, Yasoda, Jagannath Mishra, Sachidevi. Moreover, Lord Krishna showed fondness for young girls. This is all divine behavior worthy of being emulated. That's what they say. It is Maya for someone claiming to be a Vaishnava to renounce family life and lusty desires, because that goes against the Lord's own way of life. Right? It sounds quite squeamish. That's their complete perverted understanding. Yeah. And about the holy name, they say that the holy name is all powerful. Therefore, there is no difference. There is no such thing as Nama Bas, Nama Parad, and Sudanam. It's all just one holy name. Yeah. It doesn't matter the level, the spiritual state of the guru, because the holy name of work anyway, it has its own power. And they say that if Bilvamangala Thakur became Krishna conscious by hearing from a prostitute, what can be wrong in receiving the holy name from a prostitute or an immoral guru? You get the holy name. There's no such distinction. You get the holy name. Yeah. And there's no such thing as rules and regulations. Well, there is a no need. Yeah. Because you can just chant Hare Krishna, and even if you're drinking, smoking, or having illicit activities, don't worry, the holy name's going to clean everything.
Krishna.
And also they also say if you should never find fault with the guru, even if he drinks liquor or goes with prostitutes. Yeah. That's it gets pretty gruesome. It gets pretty dark, actually.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. These people still, and that's why, hearing these different deviations, when you go to India, that's what, there's a whole mixture of these type of deviations, So they also say that because Garuda, he's an eternal associate, he eats fish and meat. So this can be done in the service of the Lord. Doesn't matter, whatever nonsense if a person wear, no matter what nonsense a person wearing neck beads and tilak may have done, if that person shows symptoms of ecstasy in kirtan, he's considered to be a pure devotee. Yeah, that's why they make a big thing of going to ecstasy in kirtan, because that means they're pure. They're pure devotee. Even they cannot be affected by these things, eating meat, illicit activities. If they're going to ecstasy, that means they're pure devotees.
So Murli Prabhu, when, as you say, do they pretend they're in ecstasy? Or
Well,
are they
the mind, they actually convince themselves. Actually, the mind is quite, you can convince yourself of anything. If you really get into it, if you really kind of try your best, because even if you go to a, you may have had that experience where you go to a concert. I mean, I've had that experience before I joined. I went to see this concert and it's a big hall and the music, and my hairs were standing on end, I was feeling some type of emotions, but completely based on the material thing which I was seeing. I was in this concert hall and everyone was singing. And like in football, when you're with a big group of people and they're all in this euphoric, it can affect you. So in the same way that these people, they engage in kirtan and they build up these ecstasies, then everyone takes the dust from their feet and it's not, Srila Prabhupada, quote from Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes the 8 symptoms of ecstasy, asta sattva vikara, inertness, perspiration, standing of hairs on the end, failing of the voice, trembling, paleness of the body, tears in the eyes, and trance, are imitated by mundane devotees, Prakrta Sahajiya. But the pseudo symptoms are once detected when one sees a pseudo devotee addicted to many forbidden things. For them, it's not a problem. Yeah. If they go into ecstasy in kirtan, that means they're pure. Yeah. Let's see here. There's more quotes, which is regarding our philosophy. We're familiar with that. We could, so they also do not believe, or there's no harm in hearing devotional songs done by professional singers and musicians. Yeah, there's no harm. Because they say that the consciousness of the singer plays no part in the transmission of devotion. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so there's no harm in employing professional actors and prostitutes to enact Krishna's pastimes in dramas. But Prabhupada said in that regard, I'll just read a part of this quote. Professional players and dramatic actors have no sense of devotional service, and therefore, although they can perform very artistically, there is no life in such performances. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to refer to such an actor as Yatra Deli Narada, which means partial Narada. Sometimes an actor in a drama plays a part of Narad, and so in his private life he is not at all like Narad, because he's not a devotee. Such actors are not needed in dramatic performances about the lives of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada is saying that because he obviously would see all these Sahajas doing these plays. Yeah. So when, of course, when ISKCON was created and devotees were doing plays, he wanted to make sure that those who were acting were actually devotees. Yeah. They also, these Sahajas say that even if one is degraded, if he can write nicely, he can compose books about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. And also the great devotees. Yeah? It doesn't matter if you've got a writing skill. Yeah. And they say that even the most confidential pastimes of Krishna can be recited in public. Yeah. On the condition that the speaker is paid. If the speaker is paid, then that's the condition that he can speak on confidential pastimes. Yeah. Yeah, and then they instruct about Madhurya Rasa, even if one is not freed. Actually, what they say is you can better understand Madhurya Rasa if you're influenced by lust, because that will help you to engage your lust in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. There was a question there, or someone. Now, Suhotra Maharaj, he gives a summary at the end here. I guess we'll have to finish on this. And then next week we go here, Garanga Nagari. Quite a nice quote he says here. You ready? A Sahajiya is a dog stubborn sense enjoyer who may have some talent for singing, dancing, acting, speaking, joking, and seducing women. He dresses himself as a Vaishnava, but is unable to distinguish between worldly fame and spiritual fame, incomplete renunciation and perfect renunciation, false devotion and pure devotion, offensive chanting, unclear chanting, and pure chanting of the holy name, worldly service and devotional service, lust and love, Mahamaya and Yogamaya, Jiva and Vishnu, the cheetah and the bona fide spiritual master, the Godas and Goswami, the neophyte and the advanced devotee, what is authorized, what is not authorized, the spiritual master and the disciple, proper conclusion and wrong conclusion, rasa and rasabas, idol worship and deity worship, devotees and demons, and so on. In their persistent materialism, these Sahajiyas can only be compared to Hiranyakasipu, who thought Prahlada, a pure devotee, was just his son, or to Ravan, who thought Lakshmi Devi was a woman he could enjoy, or Shishupal, who thought Krishna was the subject of his criticism. All right. So we just covered 3 today. I had some illusions that we'd get through all of it in an hour. Perhaps not. So next week we'll finish with these here. We'll speak about Ranga Nagari, interesting one. They're not interested in Panchatattva. Is Saki Beki and Chududhari describe these to some degree, but it gets some of the details are given here, which is quite alarming actually. The Vedi, the owls, the holes, the shani, and the Ravisha. Yeah, read about that next week, and the Kata budget. And the Nadi. Okay. I hope you found that kind of interesting. It's important for us to perhaps, understand some basic understandings of Apasampradayas, and we'll be able to keep ourselves on the path of pure devotion. All right, we'll stop there unless there's any final question or comment. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Great Muli Prabhu ki jai. Thank you for the lovely lecture.
That's right. And when we finish this, we'll get back on course with the more positive side, which is Krishna consciousness.
That's it. That's what we want. Thank you, Muli Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So tomorrow we have Nectar of